All right, everybody, here we go. Continuing with the notes for Chapter 3, starting off with Section 8 of your notes, talking about legal considerations for the cable and satellite and telephone operators. First off, universal access. Communication technologies are viewed as essential to the proper operation of a democracy for both their informational and their educational capacities. Therefore, regulators' attention has shifted to ways of encouraging affordable availability of broadband and wireless services. The government sees that the ability to communicate to the masses is an essential function of the way that we operate in this country. Therefore, the country has a keen interest in making sure that as many people as possible are able to be connected. The must-carry aspect. Congress declared that cable systems must carry all local TV stations in the market that it serves. This is part of the government's mandate that local TV stations, local radio stations operate in the public interest and spend a certain amount of its time dealing with local issues. Therefore, it wants those stations to be able to be accessible to the public as much as possible. Satellite operations were not charged with carrying all local channels to all local markets, but if they carried one station in a particular market, they have to carry all of them. So depending where you live in the country, you might not be able to pick up local TV stations through your satellite service. You can here in Raleigh, in the Raleigh market, but that's not necessarily the case everywhere. Sometimes a lot of smaller markets wind up getting underserved in that way, and what they would do is in those markets, their ABC, CBS, NBC coverage would usually come from a larger station that's not as far away, or sometimes it might even just be the affiliates out of New York or Los Angeles. Cable operators are not required to carry all sub-channels of a local broadcaster, just the broadcaster's main HD channel. Most cable operators are going to carry the sub-channels of the local broadcasters these days, but it is not a mandate. So the cable operators don't have to carry the 17.2 and the 17.3 and all those. They just have to carry the main channel, which on most TV stations would be the point one, what we tend to think of as the channel itself. Net neutrality. It's the idea that internet service providers should be prohibited from being able to exercise data discrimination, which is the blocking or inhibiting of access to certain content or certain competitors' sites. This is also a concern of users that consume large amounts of data. Doing a lot of streaming of videos, online gamers, peer-to-peer communications, anything that would take up a lot of information online, both the upload and download of data. So we haven't heard a lot about this issue in the United States in the past couple of years, but it was a thing for a while. And the book doesn't talk a lot about this, but we'll get into some of it here. Historically, the FCC has classified ISPs as information services, which were governed under Title I of the Communications Act of 1934. But then in 2014, the FCC worked to reclassify ISPs, internet service providers, as common carrier services. And with that difference in classification, then internet service providers would be governed under Title II of the 1934 Act. Then in 2015, the FCC, now having reclassified those ISPs, rules in favor of net neutrality. But then in 2018, the FCC repealed that ruling. So net neutrality was the law of the land for about 3 years here in the United States. There's very strong feelings about whether or not net neutrality should be a thing. Here's some of the arguments against net neutrality. ISPs can prioritize communication traffic for Internet of Things. This is what covers a lot of different sorts of automation, including things like driverless vehicles. So to be able to prioritize Internet traffic to those sorts of activities might be considered essential. ISPs can make more investments and create new services if they don't have to do net neutrality. ISPs can make infrastructure upgrades. Also, less government regulation promotes true freedom of the internet. So this is for those that think that government would censor or restrict certain types of activity or certain types of content, trying to keep the internet free in terms of speech and activity. And 5G development could go unhindered if net neutrality was not a thing. These are the arguments that are made against the concept of net neutrality. Now, let's flip the coin. Here's some of the arguments for net neutrality. If net neutrality is a thing, then ISPs can become gatekeepers of the internet. ISPs can charge more for faster internet lanes, kind of like an express lane or a toll lane sort of idea. Startup services could be disadvantaged without net neutrality being the law of the land. It's basically left up to the big guys to be able to do what they want to do, and the little guy doesn't really get to do a whole lot. IoT and smart services could be inhibited unless net neutrality was put into place. And then political instability. The issue falls for or against largely on political party lines. So with that in mind, I leave it up to you. What do you think about net neutrality? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Corporate policies. The parent corporation may have restrictions on what its company can and cannot do. This would be things like types of content, the carriage protocol, irrespective of market. So in this sort of case, Comcast, one of the largest cable operators in the United States, headquartered in Philadelphia, might make decisions on the types of services it provides, the rates, the speeds of internet that are available, all that sort of thing, and it would impact the entire corporation. And then from there, because Comcast is owned by NBC, other aspects of the company may make decisions that could negatively impact Comcast and might have its hands tied in one way or another that would actually hurt Comcast, but to the benefit of another aspect of the larger corporation. Franchises. A franchise fee is a fee that is paid by local cable operators to a local government. This gets passed on to consumers. It's part of your monthly cable bill. So what this is that in order for a cable operator to operate within a municipality, generally they're going to have to pay some sort of franchise fee to the local government for the right to be able to operate in that community. Many municipalities also specify that cable operators provide a specific number of public, educational, and government access channels, what are called PEG channels. And there's different requirements depending on what local municipality that you are serving in, but many times you will see one or more of these type of channels available as part of your basic cable package. The syndicated exclusivity rule, or Syndex, is what requires cable operators to black out syndicated programs on imported signals in an area where any local station possesses exclusive rights to that program. So this is this is something that actually came out in the, can't remember if it was the 60s or the 70s, when cable television was actually known as community antenna TV. Was basically a service that just kind of helped bring in local television signals for those that had a hard time getting them in via antenna. So the way this works is some of you may actually be living in areas where you might see this. For example, if you have cable and you live in Dunn, I know that the cable system down there, you can pick up the NBC affiliate out of Raleigh, and you can also pick up the NBC affiliate out of Wilmington. What Syndex would say is that because Dunn is part of the Raleigh television market, Channel 5 in Raleigh could say, well, when we're airing the same shows that Channel 6 out of Wilmington is airing, then you have to block Channel 6. Same sort of idea if perhaps you're living in northern Chatham County and you're getting stations from both the Raleigh market and the Greensboro market. And this is, again, that idea of protecting localism and allowing stations to operate in the local public interest. Because technically, even though you might live closer to Greensboro, if you live in northern Chatham County, you are actually part of the Raleigh television market. And the FCC says that you are going to be more vested in interests that come from what's being covered by television stations in the Raleigh area. This also applies to sporting events, by the way. A lot of times if, say, ESPN is broadcasting a game and one of the local TV stations is broadcasting that same game, then usually ESPN will be blacked out so that you would have to watch that game from your local television station. Antennas. The over-the-air reception devices rule says that you cannot make rules restricting homeowners' rights to install antennas or dishes to receive programming. So this makes it so that those that, again, because of the idea that government sees broadcasts as an essential form of communication, if you're living in an apartment complex or a housing plan that's run by a homeowners association, they can't restrict you from installing an antenna or a satellite dish. Economic considerations. To reduce operating costs and increase operating efficiencies, cable companies bought, merged, or swapped systems to create large clusters of geographically adjacent or nearby cable systems. So, back in the days when most cable operators were mom and pop shops, a cable operator would operate in one or several communities within a certain area. And as those companies grew, there might be a certain community in one part of the region and then another community in another part of the region, and they wound up kind of being scattered all over the place. But as larger companies started buying some of the smaller companies out, and some of the smaller companies just got bigger and bigger and bigger, it was in their interest to start working with some of their competitors and either merge together or switch some of their territories in order to be able to be more geocentric in terms of their location, their territory, and it would be easier for them to build out with their services and to be able to meet the needs of their customers and to increase their revenue as well. Cable companies' growth is achieved in two ways. Number one, to sell more varied domestic services to existing subscribers. So you notice here that they don't talk a lot about getting brand new customers. While new customers are definitely a way for cable companies to make money, generally it's going to be a tough sell to bring someone in that's brand new. The effort that it takes to bring in new customers does not have as big of a return of investment as does trying to get the current customers that you have to upgrade. So there's a lot of pressure for the cable operators that they put on their employees to try to sell more to those that are already subscribers. And then there is acquisition marketing. And this is the idea of taking subscribers away from other services and getting non-subscribers to subscribe. Again, not as much business that comes from that as does from upgrading the current customer base. In general, MVPDs pay to carry content. So when the various networks that you see on your cable system are made available to you, your cable operator is paying for the right to carry that channel, that network, on its service. And the way that is done is they pay out a certain dollar amount per subscriber per month. So premium network channels have a fee splitting arrangement with MVPDs. The cable operator will get 40 to 50% of fee revenues, while the rest goes to the network. And then programming rights for streaming videos, video on demand, are negotiated along with the rights to air the particular network the video is associated with. So what does all of that mean? Basically, what's happening here is that in order for Spectrum to be able to carry the Discovery Channel, for example, Discovery Channel is going to charge Spectrum so much money based on how many subscribers it has that is going to have access to the Discovery Channel over its network. And the numbers can vary anywhere from 5 cents per subscriber per month to where ESPN at one point was commanding $6 per subscriber per month. So it basically depends on the popularity of the channel and how much the cable operators are willing to pay. Companies also pay a pole rental fee. So cable operators pay $7 per foot per year to cities and utilities that own the poles. So you can see there's a lot of different expenses that a cable operator has in order to provide to you the services that it offers. Now, some of the ways that they make money from subscriptions: the focus on the big MVPDs, I should say, has been on upgrading current subscribers. Fees for minimum service on cable have been kept low by federal mandate, and basic service usually includes only the local broadcast stations and the local access channels, kind of going back to the original intent of CATV, where it helps you to be able to get your local entertainment. And again, because the government sees local broadcast communication as essential to our democracy, then it is doing all it can to make sure that people that want just the local channels are able to get that sort of service at a minimal cost. Different tiers of programming increase monthly bills, and those of you that subscribe to cable have seen that time and time again. What becomes the differences on somewhat of a regular basis. They do channel switching lineups and things like that. What's considered basic cable, and some of the other packages that are out there, like movie packages, sports packages, packages that focus on different cultures and that sort of thing. MVPDs that provide super fast internet service are less worried about cord cutters than direct broadcast satellite providers, because the cable folks generally are also going to provide internet service, whereas the satellite companies have a hard time providing that, at least in terms of their own product. The local cable operator can sell up to 2 minutes of spot time per hour on the most popular channels. These would be the local avails that the local cable operator is able to insert into the various network programming. So within an hour of Discovery Channel programming, 2 minutes of commercial time is actually being put on by the local cable operator. And that's true with each cable channel that the cable operator provides for you. That's not some sort of a premium service. All right, carriage fees. We've already talked a little bit about this. This is basically that set amount per subscriber per month that the cable operators pay to the various cable channels, and they can range anywhere from 5 cents per subscriber per month to upwards of $6 per subscriber per month, depending on the demand for that particular network. Some other expenses of the MVPDs, including copyright royalty fees. They're paid by cable and satellite systems to the U.S. Copyright Office based on the number of distant signal over-the-air television signals that they carry. Those monies are distributed to copyright holders of programming. It's kind of similar to how in radio, those radio stations that play music will pay licensing fees to various groups such as ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, except in the world of television, those monies are paid directly to the U.S. Copyright Office, and then from the Copyright Office, money is given to those that own the copyrights of content. Subscribers who disconnect, even if they are replaced, cost the system in hookup time, administrative record changes, equipment loss, and duplicated marketing effort. So this is part of that reason why earlier we talked about the idea that largely a lot of the emphasis in trying to bolster sales with its subscribers is going to be not so much in getting new subscribers, but trying to get current subscribers to upgrade. Minimizing avoidable audience churn is a responsibility that both programmers and marketing executives share. So as far as that goes, marketing has to tell you about the newest, latest, greatest services and make it so that you want them. Programmers need to make sure that those services are of a certain quality so that when you do subscribe to that service, that it's something that you absolutely love and want to hold on to forever and ever and ever. Some marketing considerations. The nature of the local audience determines what has particular appeal. Again, what is your message? Who is your audience? Different audiences in different parts of the country are going to have interest in certain channels as opposed to the general audience of folks in another market. Program services have to be chosen so that every subscriber has several channels that are especially appealing. So part of the challenge here is choosing the channels that is going to have the appeal for the audience that you're catering to, while also keeping in mind that you have expenses for carrying those different channels. So you don't want to carry a bunch of channels that nobody's watching because you're paying as a cable company to those channel providers, regardless of whether those subscribers are watching that channel or not. So there's a delicate balance there, and this is where the programming strategy comes in, is selecting the channels that is going to be appropriate for your local audience while providing as much as you can for what subscribers are willing to pay. So this is a good point to take a break, and we will conclude these notes with part D of the video. So check that video out and we'll finish things up.